For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I am Surya Gangadharan, and this evening's focus is on India's strategic nuclear environment, given the hostility of China and Pakistan, and of course their collusion. Also, the options before India. Now, let's begin with some recent media reports on this issue. India is reportedly in talks with Russia for the procurement of Tu-160 bombers, strategic bombers. These have a range of over 12,000 kilometers and can deliver cruise missiles and bombs. The Tu-160, it is argued, can augment India's counter-value strike capability given the limited availability of the Agni-5 missile in bringing within range targets on China's eastern seaboard. Matlab ki there is a problem with the range of the Agni-5. Also, India's indigenous nuclear reactors for submarines is a program that is proceeding ahead, although slowly. Can technology infusion from the US or France help? Again, India is not a US ally, and it's not clear if France will share such technologies with India. So there are some issues over there. Now, some US scholars have called for helping India upgrade its thermonuclear warhead design since these were last tested in 1998. It's not clear if the US will help since India is, of course, not an ally. Sorry, I've already repeated that. These issues have acquired a new salience given the escalation in size and sophistication of the nuclear arsenals fielded by China and Pakistan. But the Ukraine war has complicated matters further. Let me bring in my guest, Brigadier Arun Sahgal of the Delhi Policy Group, where he specializes in strategic and regional security. So, welcome, glad to have you. My first question, how has the Ukraine war affected the use or threat of use of nuclear weapons?
Thank you, Surya. Great to be on your channel. The fundamental point we have to understand is that the Russian upgradation of its nuclear posture has, in a sense, prevented escalation of the Ukrainian conflict and prevented NATO or United States to directly enter. So, to that extent, the escalation of war has been stalled. Although the Americans and the NATO are in a proxy competition in Ukraine with Russia through supply of arms, equipment, and resources. Nonetheless, what is important also to note is that while at the strategic level it has been helpful in preventing escalation, at the operational level it has not been of great help because, like I said, the Americans and the NATO allies are providing a lot of equipment and which is upgrading the fighting capabilities of Ukraine, and this also includes intelligence and cyber capabilities. So it's a mixed bag. Uh, at strategic level, positive. At the operational level, not so effective.
So, how does this play out in the Indian context?
Okay, in the Indian context, the strategic deterrence holds in terms of preventing conflict escalation with our two neighbors with whom we have had adversarial relations since 1947. But the important point is that it has not stopped the conventional conflict. As you are well aware, we have fought three wars with Pakistan and we have fought a war with China in 62 and are locked up in a 2 year plus standoff with China even now as we speak. So, to that extent, strategic deterrence is value for money for political purposes, but it has little impact at this point in time on our conventional threats.
So, let's look at China. You've written about China's evolving nuclear doctrine and posture. How does that complicate our situation?
Okay, so as far as China is concerned, we have to look at three things. Number one is the Chinese doctrine is the similar to us, no first use. But ever since the strategic challenge between or the strategic uh, uh, the strategic challenge between Chinese and the Americans have escalated, the Chinese have started modernizing their weapons and their command and control and delivery systems. The implications of for that is that it has moved from no first use to a qualified no first use, which takes into account launch under warning and launch under attack. The second aspect of this is that Chinese have also developing a conventional missile capabilities, which are with a very narrow CEP. Their CEPs are level to the meters or even less than meters, with based on their enormous space capabilities. So the result is that the Chinese, although they continue to play the political doctrine card, their conventional missile capability has the ability of undertaking counter force strikes against India. So, under circumstances of a conflict with China, we might not see an escalation to the strategic level, but at the conventional and the operational strategic level, we can see Chinese attacking our critical strategic targets with through their missile forces. So, to that extent, India has to be aware of the nature of challenge. And I also like to put across to is that what we are looking at the current perspective in 2022, both Pakistan and China are modernizing their nuclear forces. And the
Yeah.
criticality of this modernization of the Chinese nuclear forces is that it is getting more sophisticated. So India has to prepare itself to meet that challenge, because India is also during this period is a force upgrading its conventional capabilities, but it has to also simultaneously upgrade its strategic capabilities.
So you mentioned about Chinese nuclear or strategic strikes on Indian targets. Are you
Yeah.
saying that there is a link between their conventional missiles and their strategic missiles? Are they one under one command, or how does
Yes,
it work?
yes, there are three bases, base 61, 660, 61, 62, which are rung around India, starting from Chengdu, Kunming, and one more place in Xinjiang. So all these places have bases have both the nuclear missiles, DF-21, upgraded DF-21s, as also conventional missiles of the similar ranges. So Chinese delivery vectors, or what we call missiles, can carry both nuclear warhead or a conventional warhead. And with the lowering of the CEP, they have the capacity and the capability, for example, launching strikes on Ladakh airfield, which is an important strategic airfield, and degrading it under critical circumstances. So for also it can degrade our strategic communications at critical levels. So the point we have to understand is this: is that our vulnerability are not only from the conventional forces that we talk about in terms of balance orbits and things like that, but our vulnerability is also from this strategic missile systems, which may be conventional in nature.
This is a deliberate strategy of theirs to link the conventional and the nuclear.
Absolutely, it's an absolutely deliberate strategy. In fact, this is becoming a new norm. A lot of countries are now developing in that. If you read 2 days back, the Japanese are upgrading their missile forces to 1,000 range capability with a similar kind of precision strike capabilities. So the precision strike capabilities to conventional missile systems, both ballistic as well as cruise missiles, is going to be the new norm for tomorrow. And this is an area in which India has to invest heavily and quickly.
So I just want to come back to that a little later. I want to look at Pakistan. Can you give us a brief on the Pakistani arsenal? We all know it's expanding, but in what areas, what directions, and what is the danger it poses?
Okay. Pakistani nuclear arsenal has to be looked upon from two interesting perspectives. One is the full spectrum deterrence. I'll just explain what it is, and single rung escalation.
Yeah.
The Pakistanis are very clear that given the kind of conventional asymmetry, the lack of strategic depth, and ideological and continuing animosity with India, they do not want a scenario in which India can militarily overwhelm them in any way. So, as far as the Pakistanis are concerned, they have created a strategic deterrence at every level. At the tactical and operational level, they have a deterrence called NASA, or what we call the battlefield nuclear weapons. They are upgrading it to the air element. They are upgrading it to the naval element. Then they have an operational level or the medium range missile systems, and along with that, they are developing capabilities through by those systems of the Chinese, which are supporting them to have precision strike capability on even on our launch sites if they want. It's sort of a counter force targeting capability. And third is, of course, the strategic deterrence in terms of counter value targeting of India's important cities, centers, and dams and other strategic assets. So it is a three-tier system that they have this thing. The single rung escalation basically means is that if in a conventional scenario of a limited war also, the Pakistanis find themselves in a scenario that the situation is becoming unmanageable, and the escalation is the only answer. The Pakistanis are very clear that they will escalate and they will use tactical nuclear weapons. I have been in for 12 years in back channel discussions with the Chinese on nuclear CBMs. In fact, I just come back about a week back from those discussions, and we get the message very clearly from them is that they will continue to modernize, upgrade, expand technologically their arsenal, including delivery systems, to develop such capabilities which will prevent India from escalating both in conventional or in strategic domains.
You think this is for just to convey a certain impression? Are they serious? I mean, it's expensive to build and maintain nuclear weapons.
Uh, I can assure you one thing: the Pakistani Strategic Plans Division is very clear in this, and they are willing to spend as much money and resources to ensure the credibility of their systems. Uh, uh, the Not only that, the important part is that they are getting a huge amount of support in dealing with technical issues or including communication issues from the Chinese. And as you are aware, the Chinese systems are space-based, and they can be easily linked and linked. And please remember, there was some time back there was this whole thing of optical fiber cable connectivity. Now, this
Yeah.
optical fiber connectivity is also part and parcel of the Pakistani strategic communication system. So, the another important element of this is that the weapons are now going to sea, and here there is a problem coming up. There is a positive control, which is political control, and the negative control is when you delegate control.
Yeah.
In the case of Pakistani's tactical nuclear weapons, both sea, air, or on the ground, on land, they claim that they have a positive control, but it is not possible to have positive control purely because of the deployment and redeployment of the systems under operational conditions. So they have to delegate it to the lower commanders, and there lies the problem. The problem lies in the fact is miscalculation, misuse, and misperception.
So, is this already happening, or is it happened, or
it's all deploy. It's all available to them as of now. And at best of the knowledge, they have about 6 regiments of NASA already available, which is about, let's put it this way, about 18 warheads, 18 systems per regiment. So you can take it about that is about 108 systems already available with them.
And you're telling me that some colonel or brigadier has the authority to launch?
It can be delegated in case under certain operational circumstances.
Okay.
When we have done some exercises in which we have found that their NASA batteries were surrounded during a great push by the Indian mechanized forces, and
Yeah.
under those circumstances, the policy is use it or lose it. So the Pakistanis are by and large encouraged to use it rather than lose it. And then, of course, they have this funny notion of using it in their own territory. And because there, that's where our doctrine is very clear that any use of nuclear weapons against India will be doomed, against anywhere, will be deemed as a use of nuclear weapons against India, and India will have a punitive response.
And they're aware of that. They know that we will retaliate.
So they are
Or
aware
they
of
don't
that.
believe that, they don't believe us.
No,
Are
I
we
mean,
credible?
see, that's where the problem lies, we have to be create the credibility of our capabilities, and 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 the credibility of our capability cannot be simply be defined by us by developing the kind of systems that we are developing. We need to have a multiple response levels, or the flexible response level. I'm not saying change the NFU portion, but
Mhm.
convey a message that your punitive responses would be such that it will be unmanageable for the other side, and India reserves the right of using its capability and capacities, which are multiple capacity and capacities in multiple dimensions, so that you will never know how we will use it. So it is the efficacy of our deterrence that we have to convey to the other side.
Do you see, has the Pakistani posture been influenced by Chinese, doctrines and practices?
Yes, I mean, I don't know. Pakistanis are by and large independent on this issue, but what is the point of influence? Is not so much of influence, but the kind of support system they have got. For
Okay.
example, the entire plutonium production, which is used for developing these low yield nuclear weapons, uh, is from China. All the Chashma 1, Chashma 2, Chashma 3, Chashma 4 the nuclear reactors which are producing plutonium are coming from China.
Mhm.
Somebody also has to ask, and analysis has to be done. Some of us may end up doing that somewhere down the line. Is where are they getting their nuclear ore, nuclear supplies?
Yeah.
Providing them with nuclear supplies. So that's one area that we are looking at. Then also the third area is design, weapon designs. We you talked about in the morning, I mean earlier part, about the fact that America might offer us a thermonuclear device, as Ashley Tellis has mentioned in his
Yeah.
book. That's to me it looks slightly far fetched, but the point is that China, having provided the neutral design of their first few weapon testing that they did in 1998, certainly came from China, and the Chinese may could have also supplied the Pakistanis at least the data, if not complete weapon design, for their thermonuclear weapons. So that is where the whole problem comes, and that has allowed Pakistan to upgrade their yields. Now the Pakistanis have reached close to about 300 to 400 KT weapon systems, if not more,
Mhm.
500 KT weapons, which basically means is that on one nuclear vector you can mount a much larger warhead and carry out a much larger destruction.
How are we responding? I mean, you mentioned we need a multi-tier response, but let's have some details.
Look, we are going in for multiple vectors. For example, for our sea-based this thing, we are going in for K4, K5, K6s, weapon systems. We are testing Agni 5. We have tested Agni 6. But we are concentrating more on IRBM and ICBM ranges. We are
Mhm.
not concentrating on low yield weapons. And this is primarily because in our doctoral thinking, we still continue to believe that these weapons are political weapons. So my basic argument is, rather than having a, a large kind of an arsenal or a big arsenal based on these long range weapon systems, we have to create a convincing arsenal, and the convincing arsenal has to be more Pakistani focused in terms of our capacities and capability to deal with his full spectrum deterrence, and also to deal with the Chinese in terms of a credibility of a counter value targeting should the China tries to escalate or tries to take out our strategic weapons, strategic capabilities, or hit our strategic vulnerabilities through conventional targeting. So there is a need for India to have a conventional rocket force, a conventional missile force with the precision strike capabilities.
But isn't that already there? I mean, you have short range missiles with the Air Force and the Army, then you have cruise missiles with the Navy. These are all conventional. There's a
So
separate strategic.
we don't have any short range ballistic missiles. We developed Prahar, we developed Pralay, which for some reason have not become operationalized so far. We have only one single workable cruise missile, that is BrahMos, and other missiles are in the development stage. We need to develop them faster. In the missile force arena, we are weak, and we need to step up.
Complicated. So, what's the solution? What do we do? Or what are we doing?
No, no, we are doing a lot. We are doing a lot, but the first and foremost is, in my view, we have to review our perception of our doctrinal percept. I'm not talking about no first shoes. What I'm talking about is that, what does political deterrence mean in today's world? What is the lesson which we draw from Ukraine? The political deterrence does not stop conventional wars. So we have to develop strategic capabilities at conventional level. This is an oxymoron kind of a thing. But what am I saying? What am I saying is that you have to have conventional strategic force which is capable of hitting targets deep inside the enemy territory in terms of India's anti-access area denial strategy. So
You'll have to
you
break that down for me.
Anti-access area denial strategy is what is that if you hold off the other guy at long ranges and don't prevent him to close up with you with their weapon systems. So,
Yeah,
for example, if we have a multi-barrel launch rocket systems of 500 kilometers, which the Chinese have, we
yeah,
must have a weapon system capable of hitting that target at 500 kilometers or for 300 kilometers. We
yeah.
must have capability to degrade his airfields in depth with multiple strikes. We must have capability to take out his strategic communications in depth. And in the maritime domain, we must have capabilities to take out his forces before they cross over to Malacca Strait. Have a capability. I'm not saying do it. I'm saying having capability. He should know that when he
Mhm.
moves into the Indian Ocean, he's vulnerable right through. Otherwise, we will find ourselves to be vulnerable because Gwadar is already becoming a major Chinese base. And when we have seen what has happened in Hambantota, not because the Chinese vessel came there, he's not snooping sitting in Hambantota. But the point at issue is that Chinese are creating turnaround places for supporting their capacities and capabilities in the Indian Ocean region. So multifarious issues are there in this domain, and we have to also take cognizance of the fact is that China may not fight us directly. China may
Yeah.
fight us Pakistan. So that is
Yeah.
another area that we need to take cognizance of. So basically is my suggestion is go back to the drawing board, look at your strategic doctrine, look at how we want to play it, look at the political context. Are we getting the value of money for the political context? And if not, review it. If anybody wants to consult us, we will be happy to do it for you.
But tell me, aren't such concepts and doctrines constantly reviewed? I mean, every a few years, don't they look at it again in the current environment?
I have no idea. I'm sure they are, but there are in the public domain. There is no such information. We are aware of the fact that India is moving towards canisterization, that is ready on launch kind of systems. That's true that we are ready for it, but again, they are all strategic targeting. The point at issue is the other guy does not believe that you are going to destroy Lahore for strike on your uh, combat command in which 40 and or 500 or 50 tanks are destroyed. That's the point. And once we come into that change, then the problem comes in is that if we launch something, he's going to be launch counter launch. So where do we stop? So the point at issue is, therefore, the deterrence must work. So first year deterrence, he must be deterred. The first year deterrence, he has to be deterred is not because we're going to take out this thing, Lahore or Karachi, but we have to relook at the deterrence as to what is it, the great damage that we can do to him so that he's deterred from even considering a launch of a tactical nuclear weapon against India.
So when I look at what happened in Balakot, you know, the things didn't escalate. Again, when there was that BrahMos missile which ended up in Pakistan, there was again no escalation really. Now I don't know if these things.
Interesting point. Interesting question. I have written on this. I have, in fact, conveyed my thoughts to people who matter on this. See, that's where the whole problem is now occurring. The Pakistani believe the Balakot and a counter raid by the Pakistani Air Force thereafter
Yeah.
has created a new normal. And the new normal is that low level escalation Pakistan can manage with India.
Mhm.
Okay. So, what does that low level escalation mean? That is, that if there is a terror strike in India and India retaliates with cross border action, then the Pakistanis will retaliate with their cross border action.
Mhm.
And now the point comes up is how does the deterrence or escalation management work from this level for India? That's the problem area that has to be resolved. And I'm sure people have some answers, but escalating and giving a political clearance for such escalations to the other side
Hmm.
who has single rung escalation strategy, that becomes that much difficult. So the political discourse thereafter turns into be conventional strike, retaliatory conventional strike. What is the level of the retaliatory second conventional strike? What does the other guy do if he brings in strategic weapons into the picture? Do
Mhm.
I escalate or do I not escalate? Because in Pakistani mind, incidentally, in the Pakistani mind, this is also part of war termination strategy.
Yeah.
They say it'll terminate, it will not escalate.
Yeah.
So this is the whole dilemma that is being created. And this is a dilemma which we need to be looking at in our
So
decision.
earlier I referred to some plans by India to acquire these Tu-160 strategic bombers. Is this actually a plan? Is something going on? I mean, when we have missiles, isn't the issue of getting bombers a little outdated?
No, no. I mean, look. survivability is one of the issues that comes into play. The second
Yeah.
issue is if you realize that the Chinese have H-6 bombers which carry nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
and they have been developing them. We just think of a hypothetical scenario that we have a Tu 160 aircraft taking over from Car Nicobar or somewhere even say an Indian airfield on the eastern seaboard, and flying over China.
Yeah.
Now, hypothetically speaking, a nuclear weapon carrying this thing can bring the entire eastern coast, where like Shanghai, Beijing, and other high-value targets, the command and control centers, the hill north of Beijing, where the command and control is located, all within the range of Indian targeting. Now the question comes is, will the Chinese missile defenses not work? True, they will work.
Yeah.
So we have to find answers for that. Do we have find answers on our own, or do we have strategic our partnerships that come into play over here? I'm not saying anything more than that. So
Yeah.
that's where when we look at our strategic partnerships, we have to look at our strategic partnership also in functional terms, not
Mm.
only in say on paper this is written or that is written. No, in the functional terms, how will they function? And maritime domain awareness, satellite ISR capabilities. Some if we have a link up with and we are partners in this Sisoma or whatever the Comacasas thing. So you will get first hand point by point intelligence. This is a very interesting game that has to be played. This is a game which has to be looked into. I am not suggesting anybody that you should invest on it immediately. What I am just saying is review from a strategic perspective, taking 15 years plans into account. Pakistanis are in the third decade of weapon development. Chinese are in the about the 50th, fifth or seventh or eighth decades of the weapon development. They have a huge amount of capacity capability. We are also in third decade, but so are we? There has comes a time when you have to sit down and take a pause and say, am I on the right course? Do I
Yeah.
need a course correction, or do I don't need course correction? Because my suggestion is, my perception is that what you decide now will fructify in 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
What you decide 3 years down the line will fructify after a decade. So it's your choice. So you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
look at, and please remember, co-locate in those decisions where will be your adversaries be, and then you get the picture right.
So you're also saying that we need to be less squeamish about military alliances.
I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying is strategic partnerships of consequence.
Yeah. Well.
I'm not
Okay.
talking about alliances.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an ally. Ally means that घर के अंदर ही घुस गया है. No, but what I mean to say is a strategic partnership where both sides realize the importance of each other, and there are less penalties to be paid for alliance, because once you get into an alliance, then his problems become your problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I
We
see.
don't want that to happen.
Yeah. But aren't we
We
being unnecessarily uh, sensitive about this? Because we're big guys, we can't, we're not going to get into something that we don't want to, and nobody can compel us either.
So then why add to alliance? What if we can have consequential strategic partnerships? You work the same way out. I mean,
True. Yeah.
we don't have to follow a path which the United States or somebody else has followed the path.
Yeah.
We are today strong enough, capable enough, and enough global and regional heft to develop our own path. What I'm trying to say is back it up with credible capabilities, both conventional and strategic, so that you are your comprehensive national power grows.
British Cycle, great conversation, quite an eye opener. and a lot of insight here. I hope our viewers also appreciated this. Thank you very much. And clearly, there's a long road ahead for India with many more tough decisions to take.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you, sir.
for the show.
Great
Thank
talking
very
to you.
much. Yeah. God bless.
And for those of you who joined us on this conversation, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. Thank you and good night.